back to yet another Polytalks video, and the subject of today's video is the pressing concerns Democrats face heading in to the 2024 presidential election, or they should face, because as we can see in this article, both Trump and Ron DeSantis would beat Biden in 2024, according to surveys. Now, of course, this is a not the most reliable source. However, the polling and surveying in the source is reputable because we can see here on Wikipedia, which is really just a polling aggregation from Real Clear Politics, which has been one of the most accurate sources of information and polling for past elections. It had some notable high key misses in 2022, but 2020 was extremely accurate. So I think it's safe to say we can not take these polls to heart and embody them as ultimate truth, but merely look at them as polls and polling aggregations and a temperature of the current sentiment of the country. Now, we can see here that actually this article is actually reinforced by this information, as we have three hypothetical scenarios here: Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, which you could argue is the most likely 2024 scenario, although with Trump's current ongoing indictment scandal, it doesn't seem terribly likely that Donald Trump will win the nomination. But out of all the candidates currently running, and even with Ron DeSantis, frankly, I still think Donald Trump has probably the best chance just due to his name recognition and broad base of support, which may be kind of splintered for Ron DeSantis or directed towards only, or centered in Florida primarily. And we're yet to see that Ron DeSantis has any kind of outreach and impact or appeal beyond Florida. But anyways, that tangent aside, we can see these three different scenarios: Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, Joe Biden versus Ron DeSantis, and Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. All three of these scenarios are very bad news for Democrats. Even in the worst scenario for Republicans, we have Trump winning by 1.8% against Joe Biden, and we can see versus Ron DeSantis that Ron DeSantis is winning by an even higher margin of 2%, and Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump, it's not even close, 4.4% as of right now. And these numbers should terrify Democrats, but what should terrify Democrats even more is the prospect of Ron DeSantis running and winning the presidency, because Ron DeSantis is a special type of candidate. He embodies the exact kind of values as Donald Trump. He has very similar policies and clout, but here is the notable distinction from Donald Trump. He doesn't have even a fraction of the baggage of Trump and the scandals, all the aspects of Donald Trump that made him such a questionable candidate and probably sunk him down in 2020. All of these scandals are completely dissipated to Ron DeSantis. Yes, he has some scandals which are noticeably purported among Democrats, but amongst Republicans and across the nation as a whole, he really doesn't have anything close to the level of Donald Trump. And so I think that Ron DeSantis is for sure the best candidate for Republicans for 2024, and I think most Republicans, even Senate Republicans, frankly, even some Trump supporters, might have to acknowledge that amongst the broad electorate, not just including Republicans, Ron DeSantis would probably have the greatest chance of victory, just for the fact that he is a bit more of a young and inspiring candidate. We talked about this for Democrats, but Donald Trump is on the older side. He's maybe not so inspiring from some younger Republicans who are looking to see a fresh change and a different attitude heading into 2024, and that's exactly what Ron DeSantis brings. And with the added benefit of not having to do it while battling an indictment or all the other scandals, January 6th, you name it, the Georgia probe, all of these, Ron DeSantis is completely unburdened, and guess what? He won his Florida gubernatorial election by over 20%. so he is enormously popular in a former swing state, and that could potentially translate to influence and victory outside his home state, Georgia. He would be a great candidate. Arizona. It's not a given that he would win these states, but he would certainly have a much better chance than the candidate who has already lost there and has shown that he is not to be trusted in these states. So I think Democrats should really, really be worried about the 2024 presidential election, but they should be even more worried if that Republican on the ticket come 2024 is Ron DeSantis. And I have already made my hypothetical predictions. I say that Joe Biden wins against Donald Trump and Nikki Haley at the moment, but not Ron DeSantis. Because I ultimately think these polls, they're too far out in advance, perhaps have a Republican bias. We can assign any sort of potential variables, but what's really the most noticeable thing to say is these polls are administered by the same company to a relatively similar sample. Or I think even the same sample. So what that means is all we can glean from this really is that Ron DeSantis is more popular and more supported amongst the general electorate than Donald Trump. And I'm sure most of that extra support is coming from independents and centrist Republicans who simply cannot bear to think about voting for Donald Trump. But for someone like Ron DeSantis, who has shown he is still a proud Republican without any sort of scandals, absolutely they are willing to support him. And so Democrats, heading into 2024, they need to really tighten up Biden's candidacy because while I don't think it's the most likely outcome, and I will be digging into the Republican primary later, I believe that Donald Trump has a great chance of winning against Joe Biden, but even more so, I think Ron DeSantis. Well, this is just a double whammy. Not only is Donald Trump shown in the polls to be winning against Joe Biden, Ron DeSantis is winning by even more. And Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump, don't even get me started. So the moral of this video, the takeaway, is not that Democrats are doomed for 2024, but it's simply that Democrats should be really concerned not only about Donald Trump, they should not be complacent, but especially about Ron DeSantis. And that's a note I want to end on. So thank you so much for eagerly listening to this video, and I will hopefully be digging into the Republican primary process soon and who I expect to emerge victorious. Of course, I've already made videos about that, but I think it's becoming increasingly relevant, although expect to see something of a shift from the kind of traditional mold of videos I've been doing right now, because I kind of want to be moving to more creative and environmentally related topics instead of lingering on these primaries and elections, which, while important, are still many, many months and even years in the future. So, with that, peace out. I will see you in a future politics video. See you then.